Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks for tuning into this bonus segment of the show. As you guys know, I'm a huge West Wing fan. They call us Wingnuts. And I had the privilege earlier this year of having Melissa Fitzgerald as part of this show. She played Carole Fitzpatrick, CJ Craig's assistant on the show. And she mentioned that she and another member of the cast, Mary McCormack, who played Kate Harper, the Deputy National Security Advisor, that they were putting together a book. And well, that book is now out and not only available, it's titled What's Next, by the way. It has immediately become a New York Times bestseller, and I have had the privilege of getting Melissa and Mary McCormack together and to do an interview about the show and about this wonderful book. So I can't thank you enough for tuning in to this special off-the-course segment of Next on the Tee. So sit back, relax. If you're a wingnut, you're going to love the next 40 minutes. Okay, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. TribLive.com is the leading news website for Western Pennsylvania with news around the clock. Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, a podcast network, which you can find Next on the Tee on. So go out and bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trip Live app for free and stay up to date with all the news in Western Pennsylvania and this show. I also want to talk about our friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a brand that I have loved my whole life and started drinking when I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. Iron City beer, best enjoyed while enjoying life. Now let's talk about golf getaways and buddies trip locations. When you're thinking about that, think about our friends over at the Macklemore, which is a wonderful resort located just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee, high atop Lookout Mountain. It is a casual 2-hour drive from Atlanta, Nashville, and Birmingham. The existing Highlands course is now ranked in the top 100 courses you can play in the U.S. by Golf Digest. The 18th hole is ranked in the top 10 finishing holes in the world. A second course, The Keep, is under construction and will open summer of 2024. The Keep is a Bill Bergen, Reese Jones design and features a 1.5 miles of dramatic cliff edge, with every inch of that edge filled up with a golf hole. A world-class hotel, Cloudland Lookout Mountain Curio Collection by Hilton, will open spring of 2024. Both have incredible views into historic Macklemore Cove, 1,200 feet below. You got to see it to believe it, folks. Stay, dine, and play golf above the clouds at Macklemore. Go online to macklemore.com to book your stay and play package. Now let's talk about the new P790 irons from TaylorMade. From the very beginning, P790 irons have been rooted in clean aesthetics and thoughtful design. However, their true beauty is found beneath the surface. With AI-optimized weighting and speed foam air on the inside, every iron is uniquely designed to perform exactly how you need it to. As striking as they are on the outside, their true beauty lies within. Learn more about the new P790 irons from TaylorMade by checking out their website at TaylorMadeGolf.com. Okay, to tell you guys how excited I am about this special episode of the show, words just aren't going to do justice to it. You guys know what a huge fan I am of the West Wing. They affectionately refer to us as Wingnuts. Well, I'm certainly one of those. You also know that I had Melissa Fitzgerald on the show earlier this year. She played Carole Fitzpatrick, CJ Craig's assistant. She teased us at the time that she and my other guest today, Mary McCormack, who played Kate Harper, the Deputy National Security Advisor, that they were writing a book about the show. Well, that book is out now. It's appropriately titled What's Next. It has already become a New York Times bestseller. You can go find it out on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, pretty much everywhere you get your books from. And I couldn't be more excited. I get to have both ladies with me as we go off the course this week on Next on the Tee. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Mary. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
All right, so congratulations right off the top. The book makes it right on to New York Times bestsellers. That's unbelievable. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so excited that the fans are liking the book. We're so happy. and grateful.
So, Melissa, does it surprise you at all how much love and devotion we Wingnuts still have for this show and for all of you? Because, and I hate to say this, it's been 25 years and still going strong.
Don't remind us. No, it's not surprising. I mean, the show, and Mary, feel free to chime in, but the show is so beloved for so many reasons. I think starting with the brilliance of Aaron Sorkin and his writing, and then also the hope and the optimism that is in the show, and the portrayal of public servants who are there to do the most good for the most people. I think we're at a moment in our country where that hope and that optimism and the joy seems to be coming back. And it's exciting that our book is coming out at exactly this moment in our nation's history. And Mary and I had really nothing to do with that. It's just when we finished the book.
I know. It looks like good timing, but really we were slow. So it worked out.
Yeah. We were super slow. And in a way, not our fault. In a way, yes, our fault. But in another way, no, because we the book just kept growing. It's a much longer book than we started out to write. And that's only because the stories were so great. We did over 100 interviews with cast, crew, writers, producers, and they just kept telling us such great stories. It was hard to keep it to the sort of original length.
Mary, even though it's been 25 years since the show ended, we've never waned in our desire, A, for a reboot, and B, Josh Malina always likes to stoke us about that and give us a tease that it's going to happen, and we know he's just joking. But I'm not sure there's ever been a show that has had the loyalty at this level that has lasted this long, and now with streaming services, you've got a whole new generation that's watching the show.
That's true. Thank goodness. I mean, I have 3 young daughters. Well, they're not young anymore, but teenage daughters, and they're all into it. A whole new generation. Melissa meets them all the time as well. We meet young people all the time who are like, oh, my parents made me watch it and I'm totally into it. And, it's so encouraging. Because I feel so encouraged by that because I want that generation to not feel disconnected. Our best hope is that they're all interested and connected and voting and choosing service as part of their life. And so I'm thrilled that it's resonating with a younger audience.
Melissa, in the book, you mentioned that the idea for writing this came at a party at Alison Janney's house. Apparently, you and Mary discussed it over a piece of cake, which is, writing a book is not a piece of cake.
No, and it's also, cake is code for too many cocktails. We were over.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Mary, how many
sugar.
glasses of wine did it take?
Let's just say Alison Janney overserved us and has a lot to answer for.
She certainly does.
But was it truly a spur of the moment kind of thing?
No.
Or was this something you've been kicking around for a while?
It was for me.
It was for Mary for sure. And I'm so sorry, Mary. But I live in, as you know, I live in Washington, D.C. And I was approached by some book agents and a friend of ours, Kevin Walling, to write a behind the scenes of the West Wing book. And it didn't feel like that was my book to write. I had a small part on the show and it felt like that was for somebody else to write a behind the scenes. It also, I moved here to champion a cause at All Rise, doing justice system reform. And I felt that, I work long hours here. To take the time to write a book, it really would have to elevate service and the service that I do, but also the issues and causes that the rest of the cast cares about, because that's really been the glue that I believe has kept our friendship so strong, so deep for so many years. That interested me. And thank goodness it also interested Mary, because Mary said, well, if we could write the book through the lens of service, that's something that I could get excited about. And I remember Mary saying, yes, I would write that book with you. And Mary's husband standing behind her saying, you guys, no, it's going to be so much work. And, after, I guess, a couple of glasses of wine, no, we'll do it. 5 years later.
It seemed doable.
Well, it was doable because we did it, but it was really hard.
Yeah, but it wasn't really, I mean, it was hard. The pitching, it was really fun. And then we were faced with the writing of it and it was difficult, but here we are. Now we get the really fun stuff to sort of spread the word and meet so many Wingnuts, which is so fun.
So let's take all of that a step further, though. And you alluded to this a moment ago about how big the book is. And that is something that kind of caught me off guard. I was expecting to get a book that was a couple of 100 pages. You fly through that in a weekend and away you go. But the book is over 500 pages. It's absolutely laugh out loud funny at times. It is touching at times. Kudos to the both of you for the style with which you wrote the book. But talk about the depth of the stories that you guys were able to garner.
We have a really, we've looked at some other books about TV shows and stuff. And what's one of the things that separates ours, well, A, is the lens of service. So it feels like it's about something a little bit bigger, but also is that we were on the show. So it's an insider's look at it. It's not reporters. It's not, it's our experience. It's the cast's experience, which makes it a much juicier read, I think, a much deeper read. And it made our research process way different, because
and fun.
Yeah, and really fun. But it was during COVID, and Melissa and I just were zooming with everybody. And it just, we did, I think, over 100 interviews.
Well over, yeah.
Yeah, not just with cast, but with crew, with background, with producers, with writers, with people who were inspired by the show but had nothing to do with it. So it did take a long time, but it was fun for us.
And we just kept going, and my housemates kept saying, like, do you really have to interview all these people? And Mary and I felt like, yes, we did, because it took an army of people to make the West Wing. And obviously we couldn't even scratch the surface of the number of people, that we could interview. But I feel like we have a really great representation of the different departments and different roles that people had on the show. And we also had just such great access because we're still in touch with almost everybody. And, I was saying this, I think to Mary the other day, but, there were several times when Mary was just having a social visit with someone and they would say something and she's like, oh, let me write that down. Or I was in the car with Alison and she started saying something. I'm like, oh, that's good. Can I record you right now on my phone? So all of that, I think, adds a lot to the book too.
Melissa, when I think of service and the West Wing, the first thing that leaps to my mind is the episode in Excelsis Deo for the great writing that was a part of that episode and the exceptional job Richard Schiff did in that episode. Talk about the impact that single episode had on the future of service involvement, really, for all of you.
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I think, I'm not sure that particular episode was the thing that spurred the service. I think that was something that we've had opportunities because of the show, but certainly the depth of what we owe to the men and women who serve in uniform. For the listeners who have not seen an Excelsis Deo, go do that right now and go back. But it really is about what we as a nation, our veterans give so much to our country and sacrifice so much, and their families, and they ask for little in return. And I think that as a nation, we have to really show up for our men and women who in uniform and our veterans, and support programs that support them, and their families. And Mary is a veteran family. Her dad served, and I know how important that is to her family, and it is important to all the families that I've encountered in the work that I got to do with Justice for Vets, and I still get to do with Justice for Vets, which is a division of All Rise.
Mary, were there things that you learned that were important to your peers as you were going through and doing all of those interviews, things that took place during the show that you didn't even remember happening?
Oh, God, so many. I mean, first of all, I wasn't there in the early years. So for me, a lot of it was learning, but I think we all learn. I mean, Melissa was there in the early years. And, when you talk to that many people, you get everyone's perspective. Like, everyone has special memories. Martin called us last week after he'd finished reading it, or a couple weeks ago, and said, I never knew most of this stuff.
Yeah.
It was
that was so fun.
Yeah. It's been really.
And it was also fun how much he loved the book. And that was, we were both nervous about, we really want the fans to love the book and feel like it honors the show that they love so much. And we wanted everybody involved in the show to love the book and feel that it honored the work that we did together and the time that we spent together. And that's been, I know Mary, I was super nervous about that. I'm relieved now.
You guys picked out other key episodes to talk about throughout the book. How did you guys decide which ones were the key episodes in your opinion?
Great question. Melissa, how did we? I mean,
a couple different ways. Like
people,
some of them are iconic episodes that you have to talk about in a way, but also the book really evolved through the interviews. This was an interview-driven book. And as we got more and more stories, that inspired more and more chapters, like the chapter on Martin Sheen, number one of number ones, that we had, everybody said so many great things about Martin. We needed a chapter for that we didn't start off that way. That would be what I remember, how it evolved that way.
Yeah, I think we asked every actor too, like their favorite episodes, and you just start to see patterns.
Yeah.
Speaking of the actors, I saw some references to other actors being in the running to play some of the key characters, but ultimately weren't chosen to be a part of the show. Which actors were almost a part of the West Wing?
My God, it's we have the list. We were lucky enough to speak to casting, John Levy, and he gave us access to the binders, the casting binders from the West Wing. I mean, I wish we could have put everything in there. There are so many juicy lists and sheets and feedback things and breakdowns. But one of the lists is a brainstorming list for the role of the president. And I mean, it's as crazy as a list gets. It's like, who's on there?
James Carville,
Clint Eastwood, Johnny Carson, like Jesse Jackson's on there, Colin Powell. Like the list makes no
non-actors.
Sense. Crazy. And then there's a list of women actresses, right? Melissa, there was Stockard was on that list.
List.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
It's really fun to think about, though. I mean, but the president list is really crazy.
Sidney Poitier was on that list, and Hal Holbrook. I don't want to spoil it, but you've got to go read the book when you see the Hal Holbrook. Check it out. I'm not going to spoil it. Go to what's next.
Aaron Sorkin is obviously the glue to all of this. And I sort of wondered as I was reading through the book, if It's a Wonderful Life had happened where Aaron was George Bailey, and all of your lives and so many of the lives of the people around the country would be so much different if there was never an Aaron Sorkin, because who knows if all of the service that you guys have all done, if any of that happens, or it doesn't happen in the manner in which it happened, and all the impact that this show has had on so many people to be inspired to do public service as a result of reading and watching the show. If there's no Aaron Sorkin, wow, what a different world we would be in.
Yeah, all roads lead to Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, but it's true. The ripple effects are really something to watch. Melissa, I mean, I see it even where I live, but Melissa lives in Washington, and every single day, people come up to her and say, I'm doing this work because of the West Wing, or, and it's not always even political work. People are inspired towards service in general. So you're right.
Yeah.
And that's what good art does, though. Good art makes you make even a slight change in your life, makes you make a phone call you might not make, makes you write a letter to apologize to someone, makes you get involved in service, whatever it is. There's, good storytelling can, when you're done with the story, you shut the book or you turn off the TV or you leave the theater and you might do something different than you would have done.
Absolutely. I mean, it's changed my life. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now at All Rise. And I certainly wouldn't be doing it in the way that I'm doing it because Martin introduced me to this work. And that's why I've been doing it for over 10 years. And the entire cast has supported this work for the entire 10 years that I've been doing it. And they have really, Mary certainly has showed up quite a few times for us and lifted up our work in very significant ways.
Such a privilege to do that. We're so lucky to be actors and to be on a show like The West Wing, because Brad told me and Melissa this story that when they shot the pilot, Anthony Edwards, who played a doctor on ER, was a friend of his, and said to him, "You're about to get a lot of capital. You can spend it on yourself, or you can spend it on other people." And it's a real privilege to have that capital. It's a privilege to be on a show like The West Wing and get asked to do things, get asked to help. Because you I mean, you can't look at the work Melissa's doing that All Rise is up to and not be moved by it, not be inspired by it. So to get to affect it at all is really a privilege.
Yeah, I just think about the enormity of it all, right? Because Melissa, to that point, if you're not involved in this show or this show never happens, you don't get to have the relationship with Martin. He doesn't introduce you to the things that he did. You don't get involved with All Rise. The people that you have impacted never get the services and the help they need. Their lives turn out completely different. I mean, the enormity of what you guys have done is really mind-boggling.
And what we've been given the opportunities to do too. I think that's, Mary, what you've been saying too, is we're so fortunate that we get to be of service in these ways. And, the one of the people who has been just such a model for us is Martin Sheen. And from day one, he has always shown us a path to service, and that it's what you do. And I know that a lot of us, it's a mix of things, because a lot of us came to the show already involved in service, and the show gave us even more opportunities to do more, and we're all grateful for that.
Aaron has talked about the agony he went through in the writing process for this show, especially when he was simultaneously writing Sports Night.
I can't believe anyone did that. That is just great.
To me, that is crazy how he was able to do that in the amount of days that he had to get things done. And it was all brilliant and inspiring. What did you guys learn about how he dealt with all of that in that process?
That he's superhuman and that it's unsustainable, right? I mean, like, who could live like that? Poor guy. I mean,
and that I'm no Aaron Sorkin.
Turned in like 2 features every week. I mean, it's unthinkable. It really is unthinkable.
He's just a genius. And
So the unthinkable on an opposite side of that coin happens at the end of season 4, because we lose Aaron on the show. And because that happened before you joined, Mary, for Melissa, for the rest of you, when you learned that he was going to be walking away when that season was over, it had to be hard.
Yeah, it was really sad. I mean, he was the creator, he was the maestro, and Tommy Schlamme, and they both left together. And I remember feeling very sad, incredibly sad, and I didn't see a way that the show would continue. Obviously, I had no vision, but John Wells really picked it up and ran with it and kept the show on the air for 3 more wonderful seasons.
Yeah,
and I think
lucky. He's brilliant at what he does. Brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, no one runs a show like John, but he's also lucky that Aaron had done such great groundwork. Like, the characters are so beautifully written, and you knew them. Unlike other TV shows. So I think those writers inherited great bones.
Yeah. And Mary, what was it like for you coming in under the shadow of this great show with this great writer and this wonderful ensemble of actors? You joined the show, I believe, in season 5.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
Scary. I mean, fun and scary. I was a big fan of the show, so I didn't want to disappoint. And the first episode I did, Richard Schiff was his first episode he's ever directed. So that was, it was nerve-wracking. Yeah, I was really scared and wanted to fit in and wanted to do good work. And I had worked with John Wells before. So even though I was a massive fan of Aaron's work, I had faith. I had faith in the scripts and I had faith in the process going forward, but I was new. So I was just excited, late to the party and excited.
An actor and a character that was universally loved was John Spencer, who played Leo, and art later imitated life when Leo's character had a heart attack, and a couple of seasons later, we lost John. For you guys, that had to be another huge blow for what you guys were doing.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just so sad, such a loss. And we talk about it and what's next, but I think that was sort of the final decision in not going on with the show, because I think they could have, if Vinnick had won, perhaps Arnold Vinnick, the Republican, but John Wells said to us and to others that just didn't feel that the viewers could take that blow. But it was personally so sad,
like losing John and
and
then turning over the presidency to Republicans. Too much.
just, and it was, I mean, I remember it so well. I'm sure, I know Mary does too, but I was in my apartment in Santa Monica and Janelle called me and she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Can you be?" And then she told me that John had passed. Just was, I couldn't believe it.
We learn in the book that John's dog's name was Zoe. Any connection there that we Aaron grabbed that and made that President Bartlett's daughter's name?
I think it was the other way around,
Would have
wasn't
been
it,
the other way
Mary?
around.
Yeah.
And I think the photo that we have in What's Next of John holding his dog is the last photo taken of John.
Yeah.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. And the photos in the book, you know, and Mary, you were so right about this because Mary fought hard to get twice as many photos in the book. There are 2 photo inserts in the book, and they are all from our personal collections. So they are pre-cell phones, so we had to scan them and pick them up from each other's houses, but they're our personal photos, so it's not like you're going to get them other places.
That's beautiful. One of the great artifacts of the show has to be the napkin that Leo's character writes Bartlett for president on. Who's the lucky one who has that?
I think, doesn't Aaron have that? I think we wrote about it, and now I can't remember.
I can't either.
It must be Aaron. It has to.
You would think. I would think he would.
Well,
if he's grabbing something, he's grabbing
I
that.
gotta go look at our book.
Get to the bottom of that, Melissa.
All right, I'll look into that tonight. No, we did write about it, and now I'm blanking on who it is.
Mary, around the time that you joined the show, so did Josh Malina. How long did it take for Bradley, Whitford, and Josh to start to sarcastically going toe-to-toe with each other?
Well, they were going at it by the time I got there because Josh joined a season before I did. So he comes pranking. It doesn't take him long. I've worked with him on other shows, and that's sort of his mode.
And they knew each other pre-West Wing too. So this,
Brad and Josh, yeah.
So
no, they've been going. We do a whole chapter on their prank war, and it's pretty intense. Like it started out, pretty traditional pranks, right? Like where you tear out the last page of someone's book, or you put Vaseline on the doorknob, or all those, the traditional sort of standard pranks. And by the end, I think Josh Malina, Brad had rented the Jumbotron at Met Stadium to shame Josh at a Mets game. I mean,
is that right?
Oh yeah, no, it gets really like there's an
they spend some money.
They're dropping big coin. There was an episode that Brad wrote for the West Wing where he has Josh Malina's character where he has Will say, "I can't act. I'm a terrible actor."
Yeah, he's supposed to lie about something. He's like, "I can't act."
It's his happiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And then 20 years later, 25 years later, right? This was last year. So 24 years later, Josh Malina was on Broadway. And Brad somehow worked with the stage management, the whole crew, which is all unionized. Like, I don't even know how he did this from LA. He got them to, the announcement they make where they're like, "Please put away your cameras." Like that whole, flash photography, that whole thing. They said, "And Josh Malina is a terrible actor. He cannot."
It's so crazy. They really,
and then he had that same scene screened on the Jumbotron at Met Stadium while Josh was there.
So they go to great lengths.
Yeah, that's some big pull.
Oh no, they're writing checks, they're hiring extras, they're like it's a cool
they're
thing.
very creative too. And Josh Malina, you never want to be on the receiving end of a Josh Malina prank.
Is that right?
And they have no
Josh
sense of a proportional
concept of what's too much. He doesn't really know what's too much.
It sounds like it.
He needs to watch a proportional response.
Was it Brad who got the whole Josh Malina ruined the West Wing thing started?
I think Josh may have done that.
I think Josh did.
Did he? A preemptive strike?
It may be a preemptive strike, although they both play into it. We're on a text chain, all of us, and all day long it's just pictures of them, and jabs, and I mean it's back and forth. It's like we just get the popcorn and watch it go.
It's so fun, and they just go with photos, everything.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned in the book, Josh is the meanest person you'll ever work with and the nicest. Explain that.
It's that. I mean, it's that he doesn't understand. He's made most of us cry with joking or pranking or, in all honesty, I think I know he's made Alison cry. He definitely made me cry. And sometimes you're like, it's too far. It's too far.
Yeah.
But he is also our best friend. Like he's the
And kind.
He's a mensch. He shows up for
he's
you.
great.
Yeah.
He showed up for us. He did like a week and a half ago. We did our first ever event for What's Next. And Josh and Rishi Hirway, the West Wing Weekly podcast, hosted it, moderated it, did it as a podcast episode. It was live. And it was incredible. And yeah, they worked really hard on that. And that's Josh.
And then stayed, maybe 2.5 hours after signing books.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's a great guy. And I went through a really hard time at one point in my life back when West Wing was on the air, and Josh, showed up at my house with like a brisket stew that he made for me. I mean, he's a good guy.
He's a good guy, but you don't want to be in the line of his pranking energy.
Yeah,
you don't.
He has no understanding. Like it's weird. It's almost like he has no off switch. He doesn't get it.
Yeah. He just goes until he can't.
Speaking to the cast as a whole, and you addressed this throughout the book, but it was truly an ensemble cast. Even though a couple of members were big stars prior to the show, you were all in it together. And it seemed like that was a culture that Martin wanted to bring right from the get-go.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Like, we write about it in What's Next. We write about one of my first days of work, Martin coming onto the set and shaking every single person's hand. All the background artists who were in the scene, were about to get ready to shoot. And there's Martin shaking each and every hand, introducing himself, asking them where they were from. And that doesn't happen on the other sets. And it set a tone for all of us for the rest of those 7 years, that every single person, no matter what their role was on the show, would be treated with dignity, with respect and kindness. And he really set that example and continued it this is just who he is. He continues it throughout his life, but it continued through the whole 7 years. And I think
we were with him in Washington this past weekend, and we got to deliver What's Next to the president and the first lady at the
White House, amazing,
which was incredible. But we were with Martin, and then, we were there for about 4 days in Washington doing different things. And honestly, it takes you 3 hours to do half a block because, he's obviously, people love Martin Sheen and especially in Washington, but he just meets every person he meets. He is really meeting them. He's not thinking like, oh, how many more, or let me shake a hand and move on. Or he knows where they're from. He knows what the relationship is. He's like, well, who's the parent here and what's happening? Why are you in Washington? And he's just the most present, kind human being, one of them that I've ever met. Yeah. But it does take you a long time to do a block in Washington.
As I've said, I've watched every episode of the show. I've watched them multiple times. I think I've seen every panel discussion, every cast reunion that you guys have done. And one of the things that has stuck out to me as I've watched all of those over the years, I've heard Bradley Whitford say several times, and Aaron mentioned this just a couple of days ago on the podcast that you guys just did with Rishi and Josh, that no matter what you guys do for the rest of your lives, the West Wing is going to be the first line of your obituaries. And I think that speaks to just how impactful the show has been, how great the work is that you guys all did, and how much the show is beloved. But your thought is Brad right?
Yeah, I think so.
He is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And how lucky.
I mean, if I were going to die ever, that would be something that I.
But you will never die, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
But you know what else? You'll get best-selling author in there too, Mary.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
But I think the other thing is, if you really look at Martin, and that will be probably in our first obit line, but hopefully the legacy is really the kindness and the love and the friendship for us and the service.
Melissa, I don't recall if it was you or Janelle who said regarding a proposed reboot of the show, they better hurry up or the walk and talks are going to become walker and talks. I
credit Janelle. She said it to me, but I'm quoting her.
I love it.
I know. Isn't that great? And
Such
true.
a good quote.
It really is.
I don't think I could wear a heel and walk down a hall quickly anymore. Mary can, but I can't.
But I think that's something we're all, of course, hoping for. But you guys alluded to this earlier. I mean, we live in a time where this is, to me, the perfect time to have something like that happen. We look at so many, our country is divided. We have fake accounts on social media doing their best to spread negativity and hate. We need inspiration, a movement to serve, images of a government that could actually work together, even though we have two opposing parties instead of two parties that ignore one another. We need something like this to inspire us to do better.
I think it's
you have it, our book.
And the West Wing. I think it is why people watch it again and again and again, because it's like a tonic. It's like an antidote to all the toxicity and sadness and anger, and which people are done with. I think people are really tired of it, and we're seeing that right now with the Harris Walz ticket. We're seeing that hope again and joy. And I'm here for it. I'm into it big time, because I'm exhausted by all that meanness. Just life's too short, too hard to live like that.
Yeah. And that, to me, I start to turn off social media, though I need it for the show and to follow certain people. But with all the negativity that's out there, I mean, Twitter or X is, to me, a cesspool of negativity. It's unfortunate that that's where we're at in our society. Yeah. I agree with you. I think we need something like the West Wing to kind of perk us back up and let us know that there is something better. There's a better way, in other words.
There is. I mean, the West Wing gets, there. Yeah, and the West Wing gets, some criticism from people for being too aspirational or too hopeful. But I honestly think it's good. And there are people in Washington, Melissa knows many of them, and I've met a bunch, who are there to do good work, who are there to do the most good for the most people. They're there for the right reasons. Are they all that way? Obviously not. But there are people there with goodness in their heart. And it's important, I think, to remember that. And for our young viewers, our new Wingnuts, to see that. It's good. Cynicism, too much is too much.
Yes.
And the other thing is, it's in our hands. This is our world. It's our government.
Yes.
And we're the ones who create it. We're the ones who build it. And we have a real opportunity at this moment in our nation's history to build a kinder, more compassionate, really effective and strong government. And I feel it happening. I really do.
I think one of the criticisms I heard over the course of time about the West Wing was maybe it was too Pollyanna. Things always worked out in the end. Yeah. But I think we needed that. I think we need to see that things can be resolved. We can resolve difficult situations. We can.
And they weren't always, though. They weren't always on the show. I think they did delve into the complexity and the compromise that was necessary. I think, what I loved about it was that sometimes when there were disagreements, that the compromise came up with a better solution to the problem than either side had in the beginning.
That's what's missing now, right? Like when you look at the immigration law that was just sort of killed before it had a chance, a bipartisan immigration policy that was shut down. It's because the compromise is out the window, right? Like it's not about the best idea wins anymore. And so I think that's what's so discouraging to people about Washington and politics. And I hope that we're in a place right now, and maybe the West Wing in our book, and and the Walz Harris ticket, maybe all of that can reignite that spirit about compromising, about doing what's the best decision for the most people.
Yeah, and also paying attention to who's representing you in Congress, in the Senate, on your school board. Pay attention. Do they represent your values? Are they doing, because everything that our elected officials do, they're doing in our name. And I think we need to get in the game as voters and know what we're doing, exercise our right to vote, and know who we're voting for and why. Brad says this a lot, that, politics is how you create your moral vision. And I think he credits, George Rigas. But it is about values and who shares your values and how are they going to execute those values.
Speaking of elections, you guys came together a couple of years ago when we were looking at a very important election. You also addressed it on the show, the rock the vote and all of that sort of thing. Are we going to see you guys come back together? I know you guys did some things for the folks out in Wisconsin. Are we going to see more as we get ready for this election?
I know that this is a really passionate group about what, politics in general. And certainly hard not to get behind the Democratic ticket right now and everything it stands for. I can't speak for everybody, but I would be, yeah. I mean, I already know they're all fired up and ready to go.
Yeah, just look at the text chain. They're ready.
Or look at their Instagrams. It's free
Yeah.
to read
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this group is a group of people that would do just about anything to make this happen.
Ladies, just a couple more before I let you go. And Mary, you mentioned during the event a couple of days ago, again with Josh and Rishi, that you guys have enough for a second book. Was that tongue in cheek, or could there be a sequel?
I mean, we definitely have enough. We had to cut this way down. And there's more to get. Like, there's so many people we didn't interview that I keep going like, oh, Melissa, we should have done this. Or
yeah.
Still learning things, like Richard told a story recently, I forget where it was. And I was like, gosh, darn it.
Yeah. It was at our live event here. I remember there were 2 stories. I'm like, we should have put that in the book.
I know. So there's enough. It's about whether we have the wherewithal.
And the coffee to do it.
No doubt. I think, Melissa, you said the next one will be called What's Left?
Yeah. You bet.
We just should not, let's work on not going out with Alison Janney and getting overserved.
That's a good point. Good point.
Melissa, before I let you guys go, remind everyone, A, how they can get a copy of this book, and B, about all the great things you're doing over at All Rise.
Oh, thank you for asking that question. Well, the book you can get wherever you buy books. You can go to Penguin Random House, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local independent bookstores. Please support those. And the work that I get to do now at All Rise is, we're advancing justice system reform for people with who are impacted by substance use and mental health disorders, making sure that they get treatment and recovery support instead of incarceration. And it's an exciting time because it's Recovery Month in September coming up, and reminding everyone that recovery is real. We know that addiction is real, but there is hope. And there are 21 million people in America living in lives of recovery. So I think that is something that is hopeful. And if anyone knows or loves someone who is struggling, there is hope. Get help.
Mary, how can we follow you, and what have you got coming up here in the near future?
How can you follow me? I'm on Instagram at Mary C. McCormack. And I just finished doing a horror movie called Vicious, but it's not out yet. But it will be out.
We're excited to see.
Hoda Fanning, yeah. I play her mom, and it's creepy.
I can't wait to see it. And you know what? All Rise just got on Instagram too.
Is that right?
It's at All Rise, I think. Well, we're on Instagram. I can't remember what it is.
Sorry,
new. Hold on,
guys. Hold on. Sorry, Melissa. Sorry. All Rise. All Rise.
Okay. Yes, we're newly on Instagram, and you can go to allrise.org to learn more about what we're doing and to sign up to be on our email list.
Well, Melissa, Mary, I can't thank you.
It's allrise_org. Sorry, it's all.
It is. I'm already following All Rise.
Yes. Yay! Thanks, Mary.
Of course.
Ladies, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me and share your stories and your insights and sharing this book with all of us. It's fantastic. It's, like I say, it's touching. It's laugh out loud at times. It's something that, as a wingnut, once you start, you can't put it down. So I can't thank you enough for doing it.
That's a great
that feels so good to hear.
Actually, hardcore wingnut. I'm into it.
Yeah. Yep. Me too. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Take care, ladies. All the best to you and your families.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye. How much fun was that? If you're a wingnut, it doesn't get any better. Melissa Fitzgerald, Mary McCormack, just 2 of the finest individuals that you'll meet anywhere on the planet. I can't thank both of them enough for taking time out of their busy schedules to come and share their stories and give us the insights and a little peek behind the stage of what it was like to be a part of the West Wing. Go out and get your copy of the book. Again, it's called What's Next. It's a fabulous read. If you, like I say, if you're a fan of the show, it's going to be a page turner and something you're just going to treasure, because you get so many insights into what it was like to be a part of that show and things that we never heard about before. You're going to laugh, you're going to be touched, and you're going to get informed about your favorite show. It's my favorite show. I'm sure it's yours if you're listening to this show. So thank you so much again to Melissa and Mary. Hopefully, maybe we'll get to catch up with them a little bit later on in the year, because this is going to make a great holiday present. So maybe we can get them back on the show and talk about it then. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this special bonus edition of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for making Next on the Tee a part of your regular podcast content. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.